when I was a child, I mean like 3 or 4 years old. It's one of my earliest memories,
Mhm.
which tells you something about me as a child. I had a reoccurring nightmare. It happened at least once a month, maybe once every other month. But this nightmare would include that my mother would drop me off at school, and then my mother would come pick me up from school.
That's
But she
okay.
was not my mother.
Oh.
My mother picked me up from school. Someone who looked like my mother, sounded like my mother, acted like my mother, picked me up from school. And I knew she wasn't my mother. And she knew she wasn't my mother. But I had to go with her anyway. And then the rest of the nightmare varied slightly of me trying to ask where my mother was, where my real mother was, where my real family was. And I never found them. Fast forward to my college days, I get into this author named Neil Gaiman. And I discover he wrote a book about that very situation.
Welcome to This Is Lit, a podcast where we drink and talk about our favorite books. I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Casey.
So raise a glass and let's get started.
What are you drinking, Casey?
I'm drinking bourbon.
I'm back on my white wine.
Bougie. Bougie. You bougie. You're drinking,
I'm bougie. I'm old.
you're drinking white wine from a white wine glass? Consider
Yes.
this. Drink bourbon straight out of a jar?
I am
Like a
not that
gremlin.
southern. We
I
have
am-
discussed that I am a Yankee.
I am a southern gremlin and I'm not sorry about it. I will never be sorry about it.
I don't
think
know.
you're
What's
correct.
a northern cryptid that's not Bigfoot?
Mothman.
Mothman. I'm Mothman. Most of you know that this episode is not going up on one of our regular days. That is because it is my birthday. So we're doing a birthday episode. Yay!
Woo!
They're slightly drunk.
Yeah.
And they're short stories or something literature adjacent.
Birthdays episodes. I
Yeah.
thought you said when you said they are slightly drunk, I thought you were accusing me. I mean, I
No.
am, but I thought you were being like, just so all of our listeners know, Casey is slightly drunk,
I'm slightly drunk too.
which is true.
I'm
But
just better at hiding it.
it's not the drunk that I'm not hiding right now. It's the lack of medication.
I'm so glad you finally got some. It makes me happy.
Makes a huge difference. Hey, folks, if you have mental illness, don't buy into the stigma against medication. It fucking helps.
But yes, birthday episode. So,
Birthday episode!
birthday episode! I am old.
This is
Casey,
old. I'm not yet.
no, you will be in December. Don't pout. My husband's already old. He beat me by 11 days. So we are discussing Neil Gaiman's Coraline because, as we all know, I am a slut for Neil Gaiman. So I read Coraline. I was much older when I read Coraline for the first time.
Yeah. Coraline come out.
Text copyright is 2002. So it came out 18 years ago.
Yeah. So you read it when you were older.
I read it when I was much older because I told you my first Neil Gaiman book was Stardust. So when I discovered Stardust when I was late high school-ish, I started reading everything I could get my hands on with Neil Gaiman. I found out this was going to become a movie. So I'm like, oh, I should read that first before they put the stupid movie posters on the book. Which, by the way, if you're a publisher, stop putting the movie posters on the book.
It's cheap. That's why they do it.
I hate that. Stop it.
I don't think anybody likes it.
Stop it.
I read Coraline for the first time in the 7th or 8th grade. It was when I decided I was going to be a spooky child, more than I already was. But I was just like aggressively.
That was a decision you made at some point.
No, not really. It's more like whenever I got into
literally saw a demon in a church.
Well, that was one time. But no, it was more of like whenever, the emo scene started hitting, and like
Yeah.
the black and white stripes and the red eyeliner, and it was about that time, so probably about 13. So it was a fairly
Age of Evanescence.
it was a fairly new book at the time, and I heard it was spooky, and so that's when I read it for the first time.
The interesting thing about Coraline is that if you are of a certain age, this is just an adventure book. This is not a spooky book until you get older.
Yeah,
So
the conceptual horror is a lot more noticeable when you're an
yeah,
adult.
and I love the quote at the beginning, which even Neil Gaiman today says he's like, I attributed this quote to this person, but as time has gone on, I've gotten less and less certain that this person has said this quote. And it's fairy tales are more than true, not because they tell us that dragons exist, but because they tell us that dragons can be beaten. And it is attributed to G.K. Chesterton. But that's kind of the idea of this book. Because Coraline her age is never specified, but she's around 10.
Yeah, 9 or 10.
9 or 10 years old. And her family moves into this apartment flat. It's basically this big old house, and the main level was made into 2 apartments. The attic level was made into an apartment, and the basement level was made into an apartment. Coraline and her mother and father live in one of the main level apartments. The basement apartment is occupied by Miss Spink and Miss Forcible, who used to be actresses, and the attic apartment is
They're
held by.
lesbians.
That's what I thought.
Sorry. I was just like, I remember Miss Bink and Miss Forcible. They're lesbians.
Hella. Oh my God, they were roommates. And the apartment upstairs in the attic is held by the quote unquote crazy man upstairs, who we find out later his name is Mr. Bobo. But basically, the story starts off with Coraline discovering a door in their sitting room, their formal sitting room. And she saw
The
it like
question I always had about this was, why does an apartment have a formal sitting room?
I don't know.
Who has the space?
It might be a British thing.
Maybe.
I mean, my house has a formal sitting room, but we turned that into the study.
But you also have a house.
Yeah, I have a house, but this used to be like a big house.
Yeah. But if you've turned a house into like 4 apartments,
Yeah, it could have been the regular living room, but her parents might have turned it. She calls it the formal sitting room because that's where they put all the furniture that they inherited from their grandmother, and it's where nobody actually lives.
Sidebar.
Yes.
Sidebar.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't read this book. I've read it before. I didn't read this book. Like, I didn't even try. Like, I'm not taking a shot for it because it's a birthday episode and I can do it.
Yeah, it's a birthday episode's fun.
I didn't read this book this time because I've been very busy buying a house and such. Also, Liz was like, I want to just tell it to you. So what you're getting in this episode is going to be more of Liz trying to tell me a story while I interject with irrelevant questions. So if that's not what you're into, maybe just skip this one, but it might be funny. So
we're taking a page out of the That's Why We Drink book, which, by the way, Em and Christine, I love you. Please listen to our podcast. What I'm going to do is I'm going to basically paraphrase the story as quickly as I can for Casey, and then I would like to dive deeper into some of the mythology that surrounds this book, like the other mother and doppelgangers and all that good stuff. The things that make it creepy. So the first part of this book is basically Coraline going through her daily life. Her parents are busy, they work from home, they do their best they can, but they are working parents. So Coraline sometimes feels like she's ignored and not paid attention to. And if you've seen the movie, there is no Wybie. This whole book is from Coraline's point of view. And so when Neil Gaiman consulted to do the movie, Wybie was a character that he insisted on from an early stage because Coraline can't be talking to herself in a movie. It doesn't work. So they talk about her exploring the new house after they have moved. There's a tennis court, there's a well up not too far, and the thing that she's most interested in is this door that leads to nowhere in the formal sitting room.
Did you ever have like a door like that in your house as a kid?
That leads nowhere?
Mm-hmm.
No.
My granny
were lucky enough that they could build their own house. So I knew where everything was. When I became an adult and an architect, I found the plans for my parents' house. It was like, oh, this is cool.
My granny had in her second house that she got probably, I was still pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
But the second house she owned was a 2-story house with entrances down into the basement. And the basement was where the kitchen and the dining room were. And then like the landing was like in the middle of the stairs, and then there was a stair up to the front door didn't actually go onto a floor. It was like in between floors.
Modified split level.
Yeah. And so under the stairs up to the second floor, there was a closet, but it was like angled because it was under the stairs. And she put paneling inside there, and then a bunch of like blankets on the floor and stuff so that we could like use it as a play place. And there were like toy chests in there. But because the stairs were like a zigzag, so there was like the stairs from the first floor to the middle, and then the landing, and then the stairs up, if you crawled into that closet, there was a gap where there was another even smaller kind of angled space like that underneath to the right. And of course, we thought that was the coolest thing. Kids always like love to find weird crawl spaces and little holes like that. My dad actually built his house with those things in mind. My brother's closets all connect to each other, so they can go from bedroom to bedroom through the closets and things like that.
Sounds like your dad has a murder house.
No, it's really cool. It's like the wall behind all the boys live in the basement, or did.
All
They're
6
grown
of them.
now. Yeah, because they stunk. So the boys were in the basement, and the basement had like a small kitchenette and a bathroom of its own, 3 bedrooms, and a living room. And like behind the wall of the living room, there is a hallway, but it's between the closets of bedroom 1 and bedroom 2.
That actually does sound cool.
So there's a closet, and then there's like the pole hanging and all the clothes hanging off of it. But if you push them to the side, you see that it's just a straight hallway down, and you can see the other clothes hanging, and then you push them to the side, and there's the door that leads into the second bedroom.
That's pretty cool.
And then the one in the second bedroom is actually a little small door that you crawl through, and then that is also connected to a closet that's under the stairs. But my point is, it's very, like, Neil Gaiman definitely had a good understanding of, like, how kids' minds work. Because kids love stuff like that.
We've got a door in our hallway that leads to an attic, but when you open up the main door, there's another door.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the reason we have 2 doors is the air brake. Because since that attic, right underneath that attic is our roof. So
I think it just speaks
an
to the
actual
creativity
reason for that to be there.
And yeah, like my granny's under closet was the same thing. There's a reason it's there, but like kids are just so imaginative that like it doesn't even occur to them like, is there a practical reason for this to exist? They just come up with a fantastic reason for it instead.
And that's the world I want to live in.
Yeah.
So anyway, Coraline basically begs her mother to open this door that she doesn't know where it leads. And her mother gets the key, which is on the top of the door to the kitchen pantry, and gets it down, and it's this big old iron key. And she opens the door, and it opens up onto a wall of bricks. And her mom was like, they just probably bricked this up when they changed this to 2 apartments. Leave it alone. And Coraline's just curious about it. And then like that night she has dreams about shadows going through the door and blah blah, and like the next day is like dull as ever. Like her whole life, the whole book is written right now where it's like her life is completely dull. Which if you watch the movie, they do a really wonderful thing with set dressing and coloring that they do with the movie, where Coraline's, like the backgrounds and the backdrops are all very gray, but the people are very colorful. And in the other world, in the movie, the people are very gray, but the background is very colorful. So basically, it's kind of like the people who add color to Coraline's world are the people she knows and the relationships she has, which was a nice touch in the movie. Really nicely done, Henry Selick. I appreciated that. So this whole book is like they go shopping for school clothes. Everything is gray and black. And Coraline is like, oh, I want these really like brightly colored frog boots. And her mom is like, no. Or day-glow green gloves. Her mom's like, no, you can't wear those to school. And so Coraline just one day while her mother is out going to get the grocery shopping, she just decides, she makes the choice to open the door that leads nowhere, knowing it leads nowhere. And this time she opens it up and it enters a dark hallway. And then she gets to the other end of the dark hallway and she's standing in her parlor, her formal living room. But something seems off. And she hears her mother cooking in the kitchen and she goes in and her mother is there cooking, but it's not her mother. This woman has bright red long nails, hair that seems to move by itself. She's a little taller, and she has big black buttons for eyes. Which that would be horrifying.
I hate that.
The
Hate that for Coraline.
button eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Those are terrifying, aren't they?
I don't like stuff with eyes.
It's horrifying. Like, well, the eyes are the window to the soul. And if you have no eyes, what does that mean?
I wouldn't know. I don't have a soul.
You are Ginger. Apologies, I'm asking the wrong person. And basically, she says, oh, silly, I'm your other mother. Go get your other father. Tell him that lunch is ready. Everybody has another mother. We're so happy that you came home. We've missed you. Coraline's like, excuse me? She's like, we've missed you.
Bitch, I don't know you.
Yeah, she's like, it hasn't been the same here without you. And so Coraline, being the good kind of child, being like, okay, what's going on, goes and gets the other father, has delicious lunch. Everything in this world is seemingly perfect. Everything's colorful, the food is good. Her mom is like, and I thought after lunch you could go upstairs and play with the rats. Coraline's like, excuse me. She's like, yes, the man who lives upstairs, his rat circus, is ready. You could go play with the rats. And so she goes up to her room, which is, again, obscenely bright and colorful, full with, like, a toy box full of, like, living toys, which is something that would bother me.
I wouldn't like that.
I would not like that at
I
all.
don't want that.
I don't want that either. And there's, like, big red-eyed rats under her bed, and they form a little pyramid and sing a song, and it's basically like, we were here before you came here, we will be here after you leave, after you fall, and I'm like, okay. Like, the first time I read this, I'm like, that's hella creepy. But basically, every song the rats have are basically plague reminiscent, I suppose is the best way to put it.
I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do that either. See, here's the thing. If you're a kid, you don't understand a lot of the references Gaiman is making. But when you're an adult, you do. And it's terrifying.
Yeah.
And so then she's like, I'm going to go out and explore to kind of see what's going on. And she goes down to Miss Spink and Forcible's apartment.
The lesbians.
The lesbians. Which I skipped over a lot of stuff where, like, at the beginning, she had gone to the original Spink and Forcible's apartment and they read her tea leaves and they're like, oh dear, you're in danger. And what they give her is a little stone with a hole in the middle, which is an adder stone, which we will get to the mythology of that later. And she has that in her pocket. And when Coraline goes out to explore to go to Spink and Forcible, she meets the black cat that roams around her house. And they talk. And they're like, oh, it's good to bring protection, you know. You probably should watch out for the other mother. She's not what she seems.
That bitch crazy.
That bitch cray. Which, you know, there is the whole mythology of cats protecting the underworld and being mystical in nature themselves. So, if a cat starts talking to you, you should probably listen.
Did you ever read James and the Giant Peach?
Mm-hmm.
Same energy.
Yeah, same energy.
There's even lesbians. Aren't his aunt? He's got those aunts that are like
Those two aunts.
lesbians.
Lesbians.
Yeah, it's a very. It's a, this is that's what Coraline reminds me of every time. It's like I think of James and the Giant Peach.
Yeah. But she goes down to the other Spink and Force Bowl, and they do basically a never-ending theater performance where they recite Shakespeare, which, by the way, I loved how they handled Spink and Force Bowl in the movie, which this is also probably like a movie that I watch a lot, so it's probably one of my favorite movies, so I do reference the movie a lot.
I think I've only seen the movie once.
The movie's good. Spink and Forcible is like they're actresses, but it is alluded to that they were of an adult nature in the film. And I'm like, because like even in the book, they're like, oh, they would send flowers to my dressing room all the time. Who? Men. And just move on. And I'm like, these two were shacking up in the dressing room. It's fine. You know, why not? Yeah. There's even like the lot. Okay, when one of them started talking about reading tea leaves and astrological symbols, I'm like, they lesbians. Which
These
that is
bitches gay. Good for them.
Which I mean, I know that's not usually. I don't mean to generalize an entire group of people, but I do know Karita exceptionally well, and she probably knows my moon and sun rising, whatever, more than
Moon and sun rising. Moon and sun rising. Hey, Karina! Karina! My wife. Come here. What
I
are
said something horribly wrong about my astrological symbol.
she said she was hoping you would know her moon and sun rising.
You're a Virgo. Your sun is in Virgo. I'm pretty sure when we looked it up, your moon is in Aquarius and your rising is in Scorpio.
Thank you.
There were 3 different things, not your moon and sun rising. So there you go. You've got you got Virgo, Aquarius, Scorpio.
I'm happy to help.
Thank you. I love you. Bye.
I was trying not to generalize, but you kind of proved my point.
Here to help.
Yes, my daughters are Aquarius. But yes, they do this big whole theater thing, and they get back, and her mother is like, "Oh, you've had so much fun. Wouldn't you just love to stay here for the rest of your life and let me love you, and we can play games and all this stuff? There's only one teeny tiny thing I need you to do for me. I need you to sew buttons into your eyes." Coraline's like, "No, thank you. I'd like to go home now," which is the smart reaction, in my opinion.
I have to be going. Actually, fuck this. Coraline said, "Hell to the nah." Actually, no.
No, thank you.
I'm not interested.
And her other father is like, "It won't hurt a bit." And there's a line where she's like, "Coraline knew enough that when adults say things won't hurt, they usually did. A lot."
Yeah.
But yes, Coraline is no thank you. And sneaks her way back through the passage. Because she's like, no, thank you. I'm going to go home. No, I've had my adventure. I'm done. And she gets back home, and her mother has not come back from grocery shopping. So she's like, okay, weird. And then waits and waits and waits and waits and like goes through her day and eats her food and goes to bed. And wakes up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. and her parents are still not home. And that's when she realizes her parents are not coming home. So the next day goes by, and she goes down to see the real Spink and Forcible and is like, my parents have disappeared. I think this entity has taken them into the other world to draw me back in there. And they're like, you're such a creative child. And send her on her way. They don't really listen to her. And Mr. Bobo, she tries to tell Mr. Bobo as well, and he also doesn't really listen to her. So she goes down to the shop, buys herself apples and chocolate cake, and goes to bed and wakes up in the middle of the night to the cat pawing at her. And is like, do you know where my parents are? And he takes her to the hall mirror, and she sees her parents in the mirror, and they basically write, help us, because they know, and she knows that the other mother has taken them. So Like the misguided child she is, she calls the police. The police is like, have some hot chocolate, tell your mom, have her hug you, makes the nightmares go away. So this gentleman obviously does not believe her.
Right.
So she hangs up the phone and is like, well, I have to go back and get them, but I know this is a trap. So she takes her stone with a hole in it and a couple of apples and her robe and her slippers and goes back through the door. After she tells a little story about her dad getting stung by wasps, which, by the way, I've discovered is a true story that actually happened to Neil Gaiman. I found that out when I took his master's class online.
Mm.
That was actually something that happened to him. Was he was hiking with his son Ash, and I don't know if it was Ash actually, but he was hiking with his children and stepped on a wasp's nest, and he told them to run up the hill, and he stayed still and let himself get stung so that way his children would not get stung. But he dropped his glasses, and then the next day had to go back for his glasses. And he's like, standing there and getting stung was not the brave thing to do. It was terrifying to go back and knowing the wasps were there. So Coraline basically goes back absolutely terrified, knowing the other mother is there.
Right.
And gets there, and the other mother is basically trying to win her over. And Coraline basically says, no, thank you. I know you've taken my parents. I would like them, and I would like to go home, please. And the other mother basically puts her in a dark box concrete
Jail.
Jail. Self-isolation jail.
Coraline goes to jail.
Yeah. But she's basically in a self-isolation room that's dark with no lights to like teach her to be a good daughter, kind of a thing. And it's through the hallway mirror. And while she's in there, she meets it's never really she never really sees them, but she can feel them. And she basically, the best way she can describe them is kind of like ghost children. She meets 3 ghost children in there that say, they reference the other mother as the beldam. That be careful because the beldam may be listening. They basically say that they were trapped here by the other mother who took their souls and ate their life. And that is what will happen to Coraline, which, by the way, for a kid's book, that's terrifying. And they basically say, if you can win back your parents and get out of here, maybe you can find our souls. And so she's like, I will try. And the other mother comes to let her out of timeout, as it were.
Jail.
Yeah, jail. And the cat has said to challenge her. She loves to play games. Play a game with her. That's probably your only chance. And so when she was in jail, Coraline had time to plot. And so she gets out and basically says, what if we play a game? A finding things game. What if I find the souls of the ghost children and my parents? And if I do, you let me go. And if not, I will stay here and let you sew buttons into my eyes. It's that old fairy tale deal game. And she knows that the other mother is not going to play fair. But she agrees, and it's her only chance. So Coraline starts looking. And one of the ghost children says, look through the stone, to her in her ear, how that they're also invested in the game. And she goes upstairs she just starts looking. She doesn't know what a ghost soul looks like, but she's like, I'm going to try.
Blue.
Blue? You think blue? Really? Because none of them are blue.
Blue.
None are blue.
Blue and glowy.
Why do you think blue? Longest wavelength of light? Is that why you think blue?
Haunted Mansion ride at Disney World.
My children are asleep in the other room. Holy shit.
It was a good one. It was a pretty good a pretty good goof, actually.
Somebody call the McElroys. Okay. Yeah, so anyway, she is able to look through the Outer Stone, and the world of the other world becomes gray. And she goes through her toy chest and finds this little. She's looking through the stone, and she finds this little orb that's bright. She calls it the sun in May at sunset. It's like this red, yellow tulip color, and she remembers one of the ghost children talking about tulips and their brightness in the red and the yellow. And it's just this little glass gray marble. That's what a soul is. And so she's found the first soul. And so when she picks it up, she hears the little ghost boy be like, "Oh my gosh, you found me. Well done. Be careful." She's pissed.
You've angered her.
Yeah, you've pissed her off that you found one of us. And so she goes down to Spink and Forceballs, finds that which, as she wins souls, she goes outside and notices that the world has kind of gone gray and misty. And then goes down to Spink and Forceballs, and the theater which was once pristine, is now derelict. Creepy with like dog bats.
Dog bats.
Dog bats. They're like, imagine Scottish Terriers, but bats.
Sounds cute.
Actually, yeah. I love terriers. They're so cute.
Bats are already cute, honestly.
They sky puppies. On the stage is what looks like a giant spider's nest, which kudos to her. I have seen one when I used to be a sommelier out at our winery. That was this big. I was not interested at all. Thank you very much. I think we killed it with bug spray and fire.
Did you spray it and then put
Yeah.
a fire in?
I didn't do it, but I watched somebody else do
Oh,
it.
but it's a flamethrower, Liz.
I had hairspray in my hair, and I'm vain enough about my hair to want to keep it. Thank you very much. And my eyebrows.
Sweet sauce.
We've had this discussion. But so she sticks her hand into the giant ass spider's nest and finds another marble, which is another ghost soul. And she's like, oh, okay. And she basically, the distorted copies of Spink and Forceful just start screaming, thief, 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 thief. And the bat dog starts swooping, and she's like, as long as I stay low, they won't hit me, and runs the hell out of there.
Get low, get low, get low.
Get low, get low, get low. And basically, once she gets outside, the other mother has gotten taller, sharper, a little less humanoid, and the world has gotten grayer, and the house has become less of a house and more of an idea of a house. Which I love this concept so much. And the other mother basically says, if you want to look in the abandoned apartment on the other side of the house, here's a key. And Coraline is like, this is trap. But goes anyway to look. And she goes around to look and finds a trap door into the cellar, where a bloated, watery version of the other father is. And he tells her that the other mother won't let you go. This was a trap. No matter what you do, she's not going to let you go. And she wants me to grab you and hurt you, and I'm trying not to, because even though he is an imperfect copy of her father, he's still a copy of her father who doesn't want to hurt his child.
Right.
And she's like, you've just been discarded here to be forgotten. And he can't fight the other mother and basically lunges at her. He's this bloated, pussy version of her dad, which is absolutely horrifying. And she pulls out his button eyes. And this is very Odysseus and the Cyclops, where he stabs the eye of the Cyclops.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Odysseus getting his eyes plucked out by harpies.
No. But it's like the Cyclops can't see, and so Coraline is being very quiet to get out of that basement.
Nobody
But
here
she
but
does.
us fishes.
Nobody here but us fish. So she ends up getting out of that basement, and the only place left to look is the attic loft. And she goes up there and finds the crazy man who lives upstairs sitting on his bed trying to talk to her, and it's like his voice is not right. It's starting to like wobble and fade, and she realizes that this is the moment that she realizes the other mother cannot create, she can only copy. And she's like, that doesn't really make sense, because in the parlor there's nothing on the mantelpiece, and in the parlor here there's a snow globe and the light goes on for her. And she's like, okay, I figured that part out. Now I just need to get the third soul. And she's talking to him, and she's like, well, I have, food that I like here that aren't recipes with wine sauce or whatever. And he's like, all the time, everything you have will delight you. And she's like, will I never be bored? Well, my parents always play with me. And he's like, always. You will be their world. And, well, I always have Dayglow green gloves and boots and whatever. Anything you want is yours. And she's like, you don't get it. I shouldn't always get everything I want, because that's not real. It doesn't, if I always get what I want, then there's no joy when you finally get what you want. And he's like, well, stay. And she says no. And then basically he dissolves down into rats, which is a horrifying image of a man turning into hundreds of rats.
Me on the weekends.
Praying for the wicked on the weekend.
I'm just actually a bunch of rats in a trench coat, and on the weekends I shed my trench coat and just swarm.
What's between your legs? Rats.
Rats. Lots of rats.
Lots of rats.
So many rats.
Denim and rats. Oh, I love birthday episodes. But she loses, in the swarm of rats, she loses the third soul because she falls from the landing running down from the house, because as the other mother loses power, loses the souls, the world outside is going flat, because she only made what she needed to trap Coraline here. And when she falls, she realizes she's lost the game. She's lost everything. And then looks up, and the cat is like, I told you I don't like rats at the best of times, but it looked like you needed this one. And basically brings her the soul that the rat was carrying, which is now lunch. And so she's like, okay, I'm going to go inside and face her. And the cat is like, well, all the other doors to this world have closed. She sealed them, so I can't get out. If this world goes to shit, I have no way to get home. And Coraline is like, come with me. If the only way out is through her, then through her is the way we're going to go. And so she goes in, and the other mother is like, you brought vermin with you, referencing the cat, who are guardians of the underworld. And she's like, I brought a friend. But Coraline also knows that if she is honest and says, I know really where my parents are, the other mother is not going to let her go. Because the other mother now also has the only key to this world, to that door. And so Coraline, being clever, says, well, I've looked all over in this world. The only place they could be is not in this world. So you've hidden them in the hallway between the worlds. They're through that door. And this whole plan is, hinges on the other mother gloating and monologuing. And she does. So the other mother opens the door and is like, they're not there. Now you get to stay with me forever. And Coraline is like, no, I'm not. And in like a desperate attempt, throws the cat at her. And the cat, and her, like, crazy catness, like, cuts off the other mother's eyes. And Coraline grabs the snow globe, which she knows her parents is in, puts it in her bag, and runs through the hallway to get back to her world. And there is a fight to get back to her world. Not like a mighty fighty fight, but like a fight to, like, pull the door closed.
Mighty fighty fight.
Not like a mighty fighty Power Rangers fight, but just like a fight to get the door closed. And, like, as she's running through the hallway, she feels like that there's 3 other children and 2 adults with her. But when she starts getting to the other side of the hallway, she's alone with the cat. But, like, something has ended up in the hallway and keeps trying to trip her up. But she makes it through to her world, locks the door, and is like, oh, thank God it's over. And then she goes to bed that night. Like, her parents are back. She's very happy to have them back. They have pizza that night for dinner, but it's one her dad makes, and it has weird stuff on it, so she just picks the weird stuff off and eats it. Like, it basically shows that she's really matured through this whole thing, and goes to bed that night with the marbles under her pillow and has this lovely dream of a picnic of her and 2 other regular children and 1 child who has wings. Like, fairy wings. And they basically tell her, they're like, it's over for us, but not for you. And we're sorry that we can't help you anymore. But thank you for everything you've done. And we're always indebted to you. And basically, in that dream, the souls of the ghost children pass on. And Coraline realizes it's not done for her, because she wakes up when she hears scuttering outside her door, opens the door, looks down the hallway, and the right hand of the other mother is scuttering around her house, clawing at her windows in the middle of the night with long red fingernails. Imagine a menacing version of Thing from the Addams Family. This is absolutely horrifying. This is terrifying. And Coraline realizes that this hand is still here to get the key, because there's only 1 key into this world. And so she basically has a fake tea party, puts like a paper tablecloth over the open well, and is like, let's play a game. Like, pretends like she's playing a game, doesn't know that the other hand is there, and puts the key in the middle of the paper tablecloth, which she has weighted down, so that way the weight of the key won't pull the tablecloth into the well. But the second the hand goes to grab the key, put its weight on the tablecloth falls down into the well. And then Coraline seals the well, and then it's truly over. The other mother cannot get to her. And the book basically ends with Coraline being kind of relaxed, because the next day is the first day of school, the new semester. Her clothes are laid out, and she's like, nothing can be worse than what I've already survived. And she goes to sleep hearing the sounds of the mice band from the attic room. And that is Coraline. So the things I would like to talk about are, first, adder stones. Stones with holes in the middle of them. They're supposed to be for good luck. They're also for finding lost things. They are also in certain mythology. Now, there is a difference between Irish mythology and Welsh mythology with adder stones. A lot of them date back to the Druids. But if you find a stone with a hole in it, a natural stone with a hole in it, then it is supposedly some sort of window into a spirit world.
Mm-hmm.
And in Welsh mythology and Irish mythology, they help you find the truth, which I thought was a very interesting kind of take on it. In Welsh mythology, along with the Druid stuff, they believe it is when, since Ireland doesn't have any snakes, in Welsh mythology, they are holes that snakes have crawled through. Like, they believe that, like, there was some sort of snake god that created those by crawling through them.
All right.
Yeah. The other
No
thing I like,
accounting for whales.
They have snakes. Ireland doesn't. Because, St. Patrick drove all the snakes from Ireland.
Yeah, that's what happened.
But yes, the kind of two deeper mythologies I would kind of like to delve into a little bit are, the first one I kind of want to talk about is the mythology of doppelgangers. Because every culture has a doppelganger mythology. And 9 times out of 10, it doesn't mean anything good. I think the most famous story of a doppelganger is Mary Shelley's husband saw his doppelganger 2 weeks before he died.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have claimed to see their doppelganger or a doppelganger of a loved one before they have died. Seeing a doppelganger, even if it's not your own doppelganger, is normally a bad omen. It means bad
Did you
things are
know?
happen.
Did you know that no other living sentient creature on this planet experiences the uncanny valley effect?
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, so uncanny valley is when something looks too realistic, but it's not real, when it's not quite right. So, like an other mother kind of situation.
Yeah.
The human brain goes into fight or flight mode. You freak out and you're like, that's not right. It creeps me out. I don't like it. But no other animals have that sense. So, why did we develop that sense? Why did we evolve to have the sense for uncanny valley? It's existed for way longer than technology has.
I don't know.
I'm just saying doppelgangers are real and we're all going to be killed by our doppelgangers in our sleep one day. That's all I'm saying.
Well, that's why movies like Us. Did you ever watch Us with Red?
Yeah.
Yeah, Allie really enjoyed that. She's like, I really enjoy this movie. You should never watch it. I'm like, thank you. But there's this the idea of having somebody out there like you, who looks exactly like you, even though they're not you, is absolutely terrifying. And even just seeing a doppelganger, even if they're not real, with a bat is normally a death omen, in all honesty. So I hope that's why even in Greek mythology, seeing your reflection, not even just Greek mythology, it was like a common held belief that if you saw your reflection, you would die. So that, like, and then I believe a lot of that.
The whole thing for photography came from.
Yeah, capture your soul.
Certain Native American tribes believe that you can lose your soul to a picture.
And I believe a lot of these ideas about doppelgangers and photography have transferred to mirrors, because there's a billion ideas about mirrors. Like your soul can get trapped in a mirror. The other mythology I would like to delve into is the ghost children, called the other mother, the Beldam.
Yeah, she's a witch.
It's a reference to La Belle Dame sans merci. If anybody has read that, it is the story of a knight coming back from abroad, and he sees this beautiful maiden, beautiful fairy maiden, and he stays with her after she gives him everything he wants, and then goes to sleep in her arms and dreams of all the men she has taken to prolong her life, and wakes up a hollow husk of what he used to be. La Belle Dame sans merci, it is believed she is some sort of fae or witch.
She's a witch.
She's a witch.
Beldam or witches.
Yeah.
I mean, you see mentions of Beldam in like the fucking court records from Salem.
That's true. You can, but this
like
whole idea of stealing life to prolong yours, like you steal the lives somebody else had to prolong your own life.
Well, it's not the first time that Gaiman has done that. Like that's the same thing the witches in Stardust do.
Yeah, they steal the heart of a star.
Yeah, they can
their own life. So, La Belle Dame sans merci. If you ever, it's for free on Wikipedia. Go read it. It's actually a really lovely poem, and I enjoy it very much. But I really like the idea of how Gaiman
sucking out a man's life force. I really love the idea of sucking out a man's life force to prolong my own life. It's super sexy.
Well,
Very
also
into
too, that idea is in a major pop culture movie that is becoming very prominent this time of year, Hocus Pocus.
It's also very common in every culture has something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got kitsune in Japan, you've got various witches from all sorts of different. You've got the Morrigan for Ireland. You've got the
Yes.
beldam for like New England and for parts of England. You've got a lot of different ones.
Yeah, there are lots of creatures that,
Succubus, incubus.
yeah, steal years of your life, or they steal your soul to prolong their life. Use your soul as energy, as magic, and that kind of all goes, I think, back down to the ideas in alchemy, where that is kind of basically as above, so below.
The transfer of
So,
energies.
yeah, it's transfer of energies. So if you can transfer somebody's soul into years of life, you can do that, but you cannot create another soul, so you have to go find them.
Right.
Which, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. That's a good show.
Would you consider the beldam a honeypot?
I'm afraid you're going to have to elaborate your question further for me to answer.
Okay, so in well, not just white collar crime, but in the criminal world, a honeypot is a person who seduces a mark in order to get what they want from them. So like think Ocean's 11 when Anne Hathaway wants to wants to plant the diamonds on a character, so she goes to his apartment and acts like she's going to sleep with him and then like handcuffs him to the bed so she can plant stolen diamonds on him. That's a honeypot. Is the beldam a honeypot?
Does the honeypot always end up dead?
No. Hopefully not. Not if it's a good heist.
I don't know. I feel like the beldam is more of a predator-prey situation. Or
Like
yeah, no, I feel like it's more of a
like
predator-prey situation.
like a piranha plant, like a flycatcher plant.
Or a spider.
A Venus flytrap.
Yeah. Like a Venus flytrap or a spider, or like the witch in Hansel and Gretel, who turns her house. You think that's a honeypot?
Make
I guess the beldam's a
yourself
honeypot.
appealing to draw someone in and take something from them. A very basic level.
Then I guess if that is the very basic level of a honeypot, then yeah, probably.
I want you to say the sentence, the beldam is a honeypot.
Just so you can have it on audio? Just so you can have it recorded?
You love me.
I just discovered what the term honeypot means 5 minutes ago. Not even. But sure, the beldam is a honeypot.
Thank you. Well, since you're the only one who read it, I'm not going to sit here and rate Coraline right now because it's been so long since I've read it. But how many bottles would you
Yeah, this is probably like my 4th or 5th read through the book, and I actually did reread the book because I'm like, oh boy, I get to read Coraline again. But it's one of those that it's like, it pulls from so much mythology, be it fae and witchcraft, and even like with there's a whole mythology behind rats too that Gaiman pulls in. And just I read an article where it's like one of the reasons that Coraline becomes scarier as you get older is because if you're a reader, you know everything Gaiman is referencing in the horror genre. But if you don't know, it just seems like an adventure book.
Right.
Like, you don't know about the witch that lives in the cottage and lures you there to steal your life.
Right.
But I also really kind of like I also love the idea of like, as the beldam loses power, that the world gets flatter and flatter and flatter, that her power fades and the illusion fades.
Mm-hmm.
That's a concept that I really love and I've been wanting to play with for a story for a while, but I haven't quite found the correct setting for it, if you know what I mean.
Uh-huh.
But I love that idea and that concept. I would probably give it a solid 4.
4 bottles.
It's a good book. It didn't make it on my stair of 13 that I have downstairs, but I think that's because I had to share a couple with my husband.
Fair enough.
So,
All right. Well, that's a birthday episode.
that is a birthday episode.
We love a birthday episode. Happy birthday to Liz. If you guys enjoyed this, be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and at our website, literaturePodcast.com.
Yes, and if you're feeling exceptionally generous, we do have a Patreon. Casey just bought a house and is moving in like 12 days.
Mhm.
And I am raising 2 very small, very creepy twins who both sat there and stared at their father while he ate hummus today in the afternoon. He's like, Liz, the kids are scaring me.
Yeah.
And all I had to do was go out there and stand, and they just changed their expression. All was well.
Love it.
They're like the creepy brothers here.
Also, I was just recently a guest on the Queer Thesperians. It's another podcast that discusses life as a queer performer. I was on the episode that aired, I think, yesterday. So check that out. It's the Queer Thesperians, wherever you get your podcasts. And our next episode will be A Dream So Dark, the sequel to Blade So Black by L.L. McKinney. So keep your eyes out for that. But in the meantime, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. For more information, visit us at litliteraturePodcast.com or check out our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. And remember, too much work and no vacation deserves at least a small libation. Cheers!